Hi, this is Susan. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to make a recipe that you can do as muffins, loaf bread, or even in a square baking dish. Depends on how much time you have to invest in it. We're going to use one of the loaf pans today, and we're going to make banana bread, which you can also do a few variations and do banana nut bread or banana bread with chocolate chips if you want a special treat. First of all, you want to preheat your oven at 350 degrees, and you can do two different types of methods. If you're going to melt your butter, which you need a stick of butter, in the microwave, it needs to be pretty cooled down. So if you do that, you need to get it back to where it's cool before starting the recipe. I typically put my butter out in the pan for about 2-3 hours ahead of time if I know I'm going to make this recipe, so that I can really use it with a fork and mash down on it. It really makes the bread a little bit lighter. So to the butter, we're going to add 2/3 cup of brown sugar. And you really need to make sure your brown sugar's soft, not clumpy. You want to get really kind of a fluffy bread, even though the bananas make it a little bit more dense. Using the powdered sugar, that is really soft, actually makes it just a little sweet, not overly sweet, works well with the recipe. You want to use a fork, or you can even use a spatula for about a minute of mixture from the butter to the sugar. This takes only brown sugar, so you're not going to be using any kind of white sugar with this recipe. And the brown sugar will be pretty mixed into that butter. Now, if you start with melted butter, you're going to see that it's a little creamier. I like it this way. Works well with the eggs. And then our next ingredient we're going to add is our vanilla. So we're going to use a teaspoon of vanilla. Pure vanilla is better, but certainly you can use the imitation vanilla. It's not going to give you too much of a variation in the taste. 2 eggs. And then you're going to use 3 to 4 bananas. So I'm going to mix this in a little bit first, and then you're going to watch how we can mash those bananas into this. You don't use a mixer for it. You really just use a cooking pan here and a fork and a spatula, and that's about it. You can make this recipe with the ripe or overripe bananas that you have. These could actually be a little bit riper. They are starting to turn, and that's really kind of making them sweet. So we want to make sure we get them prepped enough, and you can put all 3 of them or 4 of them if they're smaller in the bowl, and you're going to mix those in. We're not going to over mix this batter. We're going to try to get it mixed, and then we can really kind of see the color. It's going to be kind of a rich golden color from the bananas and the brown sugar. And I use light brown sugar. Never tried it with dark brown sugar, but let's say you want to make this and you don't have the light, I'd certainly go ahead and continue to make it, even if I just had the other type of brown sugar. The other thing that we are able to do with this recipe is, if you like to use wheat flour, you could use part of white flour, part of wheat flour. Again, that's not something I've tried, but this is a true easy banana bread recipe. So I think some substitutions would make it perfect. So now we've got the 3rd banana going in. We're really just going to mash it in till we get kind of a, a consistency that's thick, but not too big of pieces of banana. And I've never done this with a mixer. The original recipe just had it all being hand made. And I think that makes the bread fluffier. Again, we're not using any kind of bread machine. We're just going to go directly after we mix our wet ingredients to our dry ingredients into our loaf pan. So this is pretty good. I want to just kind of go over it a little bit, make sure those bananas, you can do your bananas in another bowl, a small bowl if you want to, and really get them mashed up before you mix it. I'm kind of a minimalist when I'm trying to keep my dishes down, when I'm trying to make a quick breakfast, or this is good if you're gonna take breakfast to work with you, or even for a holiday. All right, so we've got that mixed. We're going to use 1.75 cups of flour. We're going to use a teaspoon of baking soda. And we're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So we're going to mix that into our dry ingredients bowl. So the flour, the salt, and the baking soda. And then we are going to mix that into our wet ingredients. Now again, we don't want to overmix. We want to make it kind of a fold in. So I'm going to take my fork, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to take my flour mixture and put about half of it in. And then I'm going to fold this in to the wet ingredients. And you'll see it works pretty quickly. And then you can add your other half. And you just really want to get it till you see that the flour is mixed in. Without using a lot of heavy mixing, you just kind of want to fold that in. We're going to use the other half. And you'll see it's pretty easy to work with. Now, if you're going to make muffins, you can make 12 muffins. The muffins are the quickest to cook. The muffins only take about 15 minutes. And one thing you want to remember when you're making baked goods, you need to have toothpicks in your household. So those toothpicks are what you're going to check the finish product with to make sure as you're checking on your time that the toothpick stuck in the middle of the bread comes out completely clean. That will tell you it's done. So muffins take about 15 minutes. If you use an 8x8 square pan, that's going to take about 35 to 45 minutes. And if you're going to use a loaf pan, and you can use, loaf pans come in 2 or 3 different sizes, plus you can have some of those little bitty loaf pans. If you're going to use a loaf pan, you want to check it at 45 minutes, and typically it takes a little bit more than that to make sure that it's done in the middle. Loaf pan. This is a metal pan. I also have some of the plastic. Oh gosh, I've got glass. I really like my glass pans a lot when I'm making bread. But I'm going to spray this really well with Pam. And then I'm going to take about a spoonful of flour. And the flour is going to make sure that it releases, a little bit less, that it releases when it's finished cooking. So if you kind of knock that around a little bit, you'll see that it's going to coat the bottom of your baking dish. Any excess, just pour out. So just kind of do a quick spot check, make sure there's not too many big banana pieces in there. What that will do, it won't hurt the bread, but it'll give you a little bit of a hole in your bread where that bigger piece of banana shrinks down when it's cooked. So I like to do this in advance, like maybe on a Sunday for school for all week. It'll last all week. If I'm gonna make it on a Sunday night and we still have some left on a Wednesday, put it in the refrigerator. You could pre-cut it and then put it in the refrigerator, and then it'll last all week. If you only want to use half of the loaf, wrap it well after you get it cooled and out of the oven, and put it in the freezer so that you could have some this week, some another week. Okay, so here's the hint. Get it pretty straight, pretty level in there, and then take about a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. This is really going to give it a wonderful topping. And remember, we're not using any white sugar in this, and we're using unsalted butter. So we could use a little bit more sweetness, and this is what's going to add that for you. Give it a good covering. Make sure all of your banana bread is covered with this brown sugar. Get it up on the edges. It's going to really make a pretty coating, but you'll be amazed at how the taste is on this versus just using a basic top or a streusel. So we're ready to put this in the oven. 350 degrees, about 45 to 55 minutes. You're going to check it at about 45 minutes to make sure that it's done in the center. So I'm going to stick this in the oven. Stick with me because I'm going to show you a finished product so that you can kind of see where we're going with banana bread and how easy it is to prepare, serve, and take with you if you're going somewhere. So this banana bread is made out of the exact same loaf that I just put in the oven for you. It is, again, cooled down before I start cutting it. You can serve it with butter, or you can enjoy it just as it is. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to us. If you have suggestions or ideas for our next cooking video, we'd love to hear those as well.